I took very little notes this week, Kitette, but I am so excited. I loved this chapter.
It was good old fun, but then also the reveal.
The reveals. I don't trust the reveal that I think you're referring to, but I
Mhm.
was all about the Condra lore this week.
Okay, so that was okay. We'll get to the I don't trust it. I agree. You could get to this. It's too convenient, but
Yeah.
who knows? Mm,
Yep. And oh, my heart broke for Dachshund.
yeah, it always does. I feel like but mm, anyway, we'll get there. I was worried about it still being the Condor, but yeah.
I still think it's Dogasaur. I mean,
Mm,
I don't know how you account for all of the little things. And she just jumped into that assumption at the end there. And clearly he was up to something. I do not doubt that. And who knows, maybe he is a Chondra, but not necessarily the Chondra that we think he is. But it's do a little bit more fact checking before you jump to conclusions, please,
uh,
Vin.
are you really? We know how Vin is. She's not going to do that. She's going to go with her instincts, and it's immediate.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm.
Oh no, poor Demille.
Well, let's see. We did ourselves have the theory that it was him.
Well, yeah, because who else would it be?
Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, well, yeah. I just want it to be him, okay? I don't want, at the same time, I guess, then, no, Dachshund, I don't want it to be Dachshund.
I don't want it to be Dachshund. No, if it has to be anyone, my preference
Yes,
would be for it to be Demille.
exactly.
For the more or less the reasons that Vin thinks in this chapter, but I just
You don't trust
I don't
it.
trust it. It seems
Mm.
too easy, too simple.
Well, we shall find out.
And to honor Dachshund, I think we shall be doing this intro.
Oh no, we haven't done it. Yeah, okay. See, that's how scarce he's been in this book. We didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, that darn Kitty.
Dorkus and I are going into the story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way.
Hold on to your butts, because this is Ascension Unleashed, a blind read through, and today we'll be covering chapter 33.
Chapter 33. Well, that was painful.
Everyone breathe. We're okay.
I think so.
Do you want to do it normally?
No, we've
Okay.
committed to the bit. It had to be done eventually.
hmm
As the one who found Alendi, however, I became someone important, foremost among the Worldbringers.
I feel like we knew that already.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we read that. I don't remember if it was already in one of the epigraphs or if it was just in that segment we got in the
Mm.
Sazed chapter, but I
I think it
know,
might have been.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. I did wonder to myself this week if this connects to this chapter in the sense that Vin could be the announcer and fill that role to become important among the Worldbringers, but it's hard for me to imagine folks not thinking she's the hero of ages when
Yeah.
news starts to spread.
Yeah, it really look, I mean, we can't blame people for expecting that because it's like you've got powers and things. Come on. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, Allomancy does seem a lot more powerful to me than Ferrochemy. I believe
Mm.
you asked me once whether I'd be an Ferrochemist or an Allomancer, and I said Allomancer. Or a Ferrocamalcamancer, which
That would be
is
the
not
way
an
to go.
option. Yeah.
But no, I'm specifically talking about the difference between being the hero of ages and the announcer.
hmm
Unless uh, unless in order to be the hero of ages you have to be one instead of the other. I don't
That's
know.
what I was saying. Yeah, I was saying that the hero of ages is you would think, or I would think that the hero of ages needs to be have power. So you can't have Elend as the hero of ages because what's he going to do?
Well,
He needs to defeat the deepness.
sure, but we think that Alendi didn't have allomancy, right?
Mm. Yeah, well, we feel like the Well of Ascension gave him, or not gave him.
Or would have,
Yeah, would have, yeah.
or something to that effect, sure.
Mhm.
I agree with that because he felt the thumping. We just don't
Mhm.
know if the thumping is caused by allomancy or how it's
Yeah.
involved with allomancy.
And is the thumping something the announcer or whatever feels? We don't know that
No.
necessarily, but Alendi never refers to anyone else
Unless
knowing it.
unless feeling the thumping is what makes you the announcer. You sense the deepness
Mhm.
is coming by the
Mhm.
thumping, so you start telling people, therefore filling the role of the announcer.
Yeah. But and as we know, we need more information about the prophecy thing for us to even understand any bit, which as Vin is also feeling.
Yes.
Mm.
Vin lay on her stomach, arms folded, head resting on them as she studied a sheet of paper on the floor in front of her. Considering the last few days of chaos, it was surprising to her that she found returning to her studies to be a relief. Only a small one, for her studies held their own problems.
The deepness has returned. Even if the mists only kill infrequently, they've begun to turn hostile again. That means the Hero of Ages needs to come again too, doesn't it?
Did she honestly think that might be her? It sounded ridiculous when she considered it, yet she heard the thumping in her head, saw the spirit in the mists. And what of that night over a year gone, when she'd confronted the Lord Ruler? That night when somehow she'd drawn the mists into herself, burning them as if they were metal. So,
Mm,
that feels like an important thing. She burnt the mists as if they were metal. Yeah?
yeah. She went to on such a micro level that whatever metal particles or something was in the mist, she was able to draw upon them. I do find that quite Hero of Ages-y more than
Yeah,
announcery because you have an extra ability.
right. Have I floated the theory that the mists are what give the metal or infuses the metal with allomantic ability?
I think you have before. You have floated
Okay.
that.
Well, still a possibility then.
Mhm. But you're still set on Vin is not the Hero of Ages and cannot be.
For the moment, yeah, it still feels like it's too on the nose. And I think Sanderson likes to have things come true in unconventional ways, it
Mhm.
seems. So, yeah, I don't think it's her.
For me, I feel like she's one part of maybe the Hero of Ages. She has to be involved. She has to be involved in some way
That I agree.
because of the mists and all of this. She can't just be a secondary thing. I honestly think she has to be. She's an integral part of it. She has to be there.
Agreed.
But maybe what will occur is the Hero of Ages isn't what we thought it was, and that will make it okay. It's not just an individual.
Yeah. Which brings us back to my the hero of ages is friendship
Yeah,
idea.
exactly. That's exactly what I thought. That's not enough. One freak event, one I've never been able to replicate, doesn't mean I'm some mythological savior.
She didn't even really know most of the prophecies about the hero. The logbook mentioned that he was supposed to come from humble origins, but that pretty much described every Ska in the Final Empire. He was supposed to have hidden royal bloodlines, but that made every half-breed in the city a candidate. In fact, she'd be willing to bet that most Ska had one or another hidden nobleman progenitor. She sighed, shaking her head. Mistress? Orasur asked, turning. He stood on a chair, his forepaws up against the window as he looked out at the city.
He's so cute!
So cute,
Prophecies, legends, foretellings.
Vin said, slapping her hand down on her sheets of notes.
What's the point? Why did the terrorists even believe in these things? Shouldn't a religion teach something practical?
That's a very Vin frustration to have.
Yeah, we want just hello, give us skills.
Yeah.
We need to apply, okay? I don't want this wishy-washy stuff.
Orasur settled down on his haunches upon the chair. What would be more practical than gaining knowledge of the future? I liked that line, and
Yeah.
it's such a unique and cool way to think about prophecy.
Yeah,
Or at
it's
least
so true.
to a unique way to articulate one's interest in prophecy.
Yes, and so yeah, and so simply in one line.
Hmm.
I just love it. I'm like, yeah, yeah, obviously all the complications that we talk about with prophecy make it a lot less than a lot more complicated than practical knowledge, gaining knowledge of the future. It's a lot more complicated than that, but still, that is the point why that's why you concern yourself with prophecy. I love Orosur, man. If these actually said something useful, I'd agree. But even the logbook acknowledges that the terrorist prophecies could be understood many different ways. What good are promises that could be interpreted so liberally?
Do not dismiss someone's beliefs because you do not understand them, mistress. And I thought, well, that's very open minded of you, Dogosaur.
Liberalosaur.
Liberalosaur. No, but really, for someone who clearly has much prejudice against most humans, that
Hmm.
is a very open minded statement from him.
Yeah, true.
Vin snorted.
You sound like Sazed. A part of me is tempted to think that all these prophecies and legends were devised by priests who wanted to make a living.
Only a part of you? Vin nodded.
The part that grew up on the streets, the part that always expects a scam.
That part didn't want to acknowledge the other things she felt. The thumping was getting stronger and stronger.
So yeah, it's happening.
Yep. Prophecies do not have to be a scam, mistress, or even really a promise for the future. They can simply be an expression of hope.
I love that. I love that the way he's looking at it.
Yeah, again, it's sort of a unique perspective on prophecy. It's
Mm.
a very analytical sort of textbook mythologist's
Mhm.
perspective almost.
Yeah, he doesn't take away its importance
Yeah,
by saying that.
yeah. It's very analytical in nature,
Mm.
and as that's how I like to interpret a lot of things, or try to interpret a lot of things. I'm not uniquely great at it. I enjoy when people who are better than I at it do it. It's so neat to see.
Yes, very enjoyable. What do you know of such things?
Vin said dismissively, setting aside her sheet. There was a moment of silence. Nothing, of course, mistress, Orasur eventually said. Vin turned toward the dog.
I'm sorry, Orisia. I didn't mean. Well, I've just been feeling distracted lately.
Thump, thump, thump. You need not apologize to me, mistress. I am only Khandra.
Still a person, if one with dog breath.
So we've kind of moved past it, but Vin, I wouldn't quite call that snapping at Orasur, but that was definitely a very I'm really stressed right now response or
Mhm.
comment to make. And I'm glad that, well, it's handled well.
Yeah, she apologizes. She yeah, she didn't snap at him, but at the same time she was kind of mean, so unnecessary. She noted that.
Hmm.
It makes me go, Vin, please tell someone about this. Tell Sazed about the thumping, okay?
Hmm. Or
You have
Orasur.
to. You have to tell someone about it. Like especially it's happening every like right now. Thump, thump, thump. It's getting in her way.
Yeah.
She needs to talk about it. It's not just, "Oh, well, I have a headache sometimes," or "I've got tinnitus," or whatever. No, this is a proper it's a proper thing.
I'm really getting worried for her fight with Zane because she's going to be exhausted. It's building towards her being really, really exhausted when they fight Zane.
Yes. She's got status effects against her. Mm. Still a person, if one with dog breath.
Orasor smiled. You chose these bones for me, mistress. You must deal with the consequences.
The bones might have something to do with it, but I don't think the carrion you eat is helping. Honestly, we have to get you some mint leaves to chew.
Orasor raised a canine eyebrow. And you don't think a dog with sweet breath would attract attention?
Only from anyone you happen to kiss in the near future.
Vin said, returning her stacks of paper to her desk. Orasor chuckled softly in his canine way, turning back to study the city.
Is the procession finished yet?
Yes, mistress. It is difficult to see even from a height, but it does look like Lord Set has finished moving in. He certainly did bring a lot of carts.
He's Alrian's father. Despite how much that girl complains about accommodations in the army, I'd bet that Set likes to travel in comfort.
Orisor nodded. Vin turned, leaning against the desk, watching him and thinking of what he'd said earlier.
Expression of hope. The Kandra have a religion, don't they?
Vin guessed. Orisor turned sharply. That was enough of a confirmation.
Do the keepers know of it?
Orisor stood on his hind legs, paws against the windowsill. I should not have spoken.
You needn't be afraid. I won't give away your secret. But I don't see why it has to be a secret anymore.
It is a Khandra thing, mistress. It wouldn't be of any interest to anyone else.
Of course it would. Don't you see, Orisa? The keepers believe that the last independent religion was destroyed by the Lord Ruler centuries ago. If the Khandra managed to keep one, that suggests the Lord Ruler's theological control of the final empire wasn't absolute. That has to mean something.
Orisor paused, cocking his head as if he hadn't considered such things.
His theological control wasn't absolute.
Vin thought, a bit surprised at the words.
Lord Ruler, I'm starting to sound like Sazed and Elend. I've been studying too much lately.
Our little Vin is growing up so fast.
It suggests, actually, academic Vin.
Oh, that would be great. No, but it is nice
It is
to
great,
see her
yeah.
doing this.
Mm.
Regardless, mistress, I'd rather you didn't mention this to your keeper friends. They would probably begin asking discomforting questions.
They're like that. What is it your people have prophecies about anyway?
I don't think you want to know, mistress. Vin smiled.
They talk about overthrowing us, don't they?
Orisor sat down, and she could almost see a flush on his canine face. My people have dealt with the contract for a great long time, mistress. I know it is difficult for you to understand why we would live under this burden, but we find it necessary. Yet we do dream of a day when it may not be.
When all the humans are subject to you?
Orisor looked away. When they're all dead.
Wow.
Wow, indeed!
That was Vin said wow, guys.
But the Khandra have a prophecy of all the humans dying.
Yeah.
That, it's a bit dark.
Apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that means that the Khandra live, apparently, to see
Yeah.
that day. Mm.
One wonders what happens when all the humans die and there's no food left because they require bodies to eat from.
Yeah, what do they like animals I suppose have to stay, basically.
Yeah.
They can eat animals. And otherwise they just mist wraiths? Nah, I don't know.
And Orisor, or Dagasaur, goes on to more or less talk about he takes the more metaphorical
Mm,
interpretation of this prophecy, but surely there are other Khandra who might be a bit more zealous in their
absolutely.
interpretation. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I wonder if there are some dangerous Khandra out there, truly dangerous Khandra.
Rebellious Khandra that unless it's part of their culture to await the downfall of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, Dagasaur is pretty darn confident that no
Mm,
Khandra has broken their contract.
yeah. But they kind of still wait for this breakdown.
Yeah. The prophecies are not literal, mistress. They're metaphors, expressions of hope. Or at least that is how I have always seen them. Perhaps your Terrace prophecies are the same. Expressions of a belief that if the people were in danger, their gods would send a hero to protect them. In this case, the vagueness would be intentional and rational. The prophecies were never meant to mean someone specific, but more to speak of a general feeling, a general hope.
We've been speaking about prophecy in this way. He has a valid point. These prophecies can be so it can be both, as in it's practical and it's also metaphorical. So it's like, yeah, okay, there is an actual person, but yeah, the metaphorical description of them can apply to many people. So it's wishy washy in that way. But at the same time, as RSO has said, it doesn't mean it's not significant.
I had intended to look up the specific passage this week, but at some point I had read much of the Penguin Publishing edition of Livy's The Early History of Rome.
Mhm.
And frequently in these books, they'll have a section before the writing from antiquity in which they talk about the author, in this case Livy, and their style and the context under which they wrote these things, their biases, and so on and so forth. And I remember that there was a passage in this sort of preface area in which someone wrote that part of Livy's style was to sort of tell these stories with bookends, and each story would end with some character from history reciting some sort of big, impressive speech of some kind. And
Mhm.
that it was common thinking at the time from historians that historical figures who accomplished certain things were of similar character, and so they were likely to behave in similar ways and therefore say the kinds of things that people like that would say.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm doing a horrible job of like trying to express what it was that was being communicated at the time, but essentially this idea that these patterns and these behaviors repeat through history, I think feels very poignant to Orisur's interpretation of the prophecy here, when he says that in the event of a doomsday, a hero will rise.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah. And presumably it's because when a doomsday occurs, it creates the opportunity for a hero to rise. And a hero will have
Yeah.
to therefore behave in a heroic manner in order to prevent the doomsday.
Yeah, and that's why you can make a prophecy about a heroic person defeating the big bad, and it will be fulfilled because you have hope that that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it happens because it happens periodically because you are not extinct as a species, and history repeats itself.
Yes. If the prophecies weren't specific, why could only she sense the drumming beats?
Stop it. You're jumping to conclusions. All the humans did. How do we die off? The Kandra kill us?
Of course not. We honor our contract, even in religion. The stories say that you'll kill yourselves off. You're of ruin, after all, while the Kandra are of preservation. You're supposed to destroy the world, I believe, using the Kolos as your pawns. Okay, a lot there. So much there.
Right? Kandra lore. Let's go.
Right? So, ruin and preservation are capitalized.
Love it when that happens.
Yes. Now, preservation from these. They described Kandra, I think, earlier in this book as scavengers, right? The carrion eaters. And they take the bones and they rebuild it and the muscle and memory. I feel like that's connected in some way to this idea of preservation, but it's so interesting to think of a scavenger as a preserver. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I like that parallel. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. And with being of ruin, I suppose speaks to some sort of, I guess, discordant harmony. Humans are chaotic. They are destructive. That is a nihilistic way, because you could also point to art and beauty and all these things. But it also makes me think of the conversation when Syl was talking to Kaladin about how people are discord. Everyone else behaves as they should. The
Mm.
the Spren are essentially one individual. Animals behave all the same. Humans are unique. So that's where my mind
Mm.
went with this as well when it came to ruin.
Yeah, yeah. But if I do think about it, it's like, well, what we've discovered about Orosur is that exactly. We even have a gender for him. He is an individual as well.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit more instinctual and more towards, I suppose, animal, but at the same time, he's developed quite a personality. Literally, as Vince has said, still a person,
Yes.
which Yeah.
And then there's the whole using the Kolos as your pawns.
It's like, oh, by the way, that's quite a thing to drop in there. Just, yeah, using the colas as your pawns. Oh, okay. Uh, the colas are part of the end times.
Apparently, so they have some sort of role in prophecy that grants them, in
Mhm.
my mind, some special importance somehow. Basically, like, it suggests to me we're going to be getting a hell of a lot more Kolos in the future somehow.
Yeah. If it's in this, if it's in your religion's prophecies or whatever, it's probably going to be significant.
Yeah,
You actually sound sorry for them.
Vin noted with amusement. The Khandra tend to think well of the Kolos, mistress. There is a bond between us. We both understand what it is to be slaves. We both are outsiders to the culture of the final empire. We both. He broke off.
What?
Might I speak no further? I have said too much already. You put me off balance, mistress. Vin shrugged.
We all need secrets,
She glanced toward the door.
though there's one I still need to figure out.
Orisor hopped down from his chair, joining her as she strode out the door. There was still a spy somewhere in the palace. She'd let herself be distracted from that fact for far too long. So,
Okay.
uh, we have heard, no spoilers, we have heard that there are Khandra in other Brandon Sanderson stories.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the Cosmere is a big universe, which suggests that the Khandra are Cosmere travelers to some degree. Am I wrong in thinking this, Kitta?
Mm-hmm. It makes sense.
This would also suggest. So, this passage then has me thinking that that is what Orisor is referring to. And he basically doesn't want to tell Vin about the Cosmere,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of what I think is going on here. And this also suggests that the Kolos are also possibly Cosmere travelers as well.
Okay, so that was what came to your mind with that.
Yeah.
For me, and I understand it. For me, I was like, they both have some use of atium. I don't know what it is.
Do you think
Because
atium is in their pouches, the Kolos that they carry?
no, I don't know. The pouches seem to be a marker of how many people they've killed or how many colors they've killed. So I don't know if there's actually atium in them or whatever it is. But hey, that is a good theory. But yeah, just what I thought was they're both atium is essential to them. That's how Khandra are paid,
Mm-hmm.
and we still don't know how Kolos are controlled.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
Kolos seem a bit too less than smart to
yes, to
be
be traveling.
to be
Yeah.
universal travelers.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's that when he said we both, I went immediately to atium.
Interesting.
Mm. But I do. It's not like I deny the idea that the Khandra move around the Cosmere, or this is probably where they came from. At least if they go around the Cosmere, it's because they've been traveling with other things. I don't think that they. Yeah, I don't know if they came from elsewhere, but who knows? I will find out in many many years when I've
Yeah.
enjoyed the Cosmere.
And again, please don't spoil this. So we have not yet run into any other Khandra in Elantris or Way of Kings that we are aware of at this time, or any of the short stories we've read. We more or less just know this bit of information that there's a Khandra out there called Waldo, that humorously called Waldo, that no one has found yet. I mean, technically, this could be in reference to someone from the next story arc that takes place in the Mistborn world, in the modern era or whatever. So I could be totally off base with this. So again, thank you for your discretion in not spoiling this for us. We've been seriously blessed with how many of you take this rule seriously. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I appreciate it certainly. Definitely. Also, yeah, we like to find out with the story. It
mhm.
if it's confirmed, then it's like okay,
Yeah,
we just taking your word for it. Okay.
yeah. So even I know it's like restrictive, but even confirming can
Hmm.
be dangerous. So,
Yeah.
but seriously, all of the gratitude, statement of appreciation for everyone for that.
Statement of appreciation number 2.
Elend looked deeply into the well. The dark pit, wide-mouthed to accommodate the comings and goings of numerous ska, seemed a large mouth opening up, stone lips spread and preparing to swallow him down. Elend glanced to the side where Ham stood speaking with a group of healers. We first noticed when so many people came to us complaining of diarrhea and abdominal pains, the healer said. The symptoms were unusually strong, my lord. We've already lost several to the malady. Ham glanced at Elend, frowning. Everyone who grew sick lived in this area, the healer continued, and drew their water from this well or another in the next square. Have you brought this to the attention of Lord Penrod in the assembly? Elend asked. No, my lord. We figured that you... I'm not king anymore, Elend thought, but he couldn't say the words, not to this man looking for help. I'll take care of it, Elend said, sighing. You may return to your patients. They are filling our clinic, my lord, he said. Then appropriate one of the empty noble mansions, Elend said. There are plenty of those. Ham, send him with some of my guards to help move the sick and prepare the building. So, this is very important. The people still see Elend as the king, or at least the guy to help them out when they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Elend is still acting as the king. I think he's being seen doing it. This, I think, will grant him popular support for the election.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just him being seen and that he's doing it because he's being seen. He just cares.
Yeah, very much so. Ham nodded, waving over a soldier, telling him to gather 20 on-duty men from the palace to meet with the healer. The healer smiled, looking relieved, and bowed to Elend as he left. Ham walked up, joining Elend beside the wall. Coincidence? Hardly, Elend said, gripping the edge of the well with frustrated fingers. The question is, which one poisoned it? Set just came into the city, Ham said, rubbing his chin. Would have been easy to send out some soldiers to covertly drop in the poison. Seems more like something my father would do. Something to increase our tension to get back at us for playing him for a fool in his camp. Plus he's got that Mistborn, who could have easily placed the poison. Of course, Set had had this same thing happen to him, Breeze poisoning his water supply back before he reached the city. Elend ground his teeth. There was really no way to know which one was behind the attack. At the same time, Elend, does it really matter?
Yeah. What does it matter? It doesn't change the fact.
Yep. Either way, the poisoned wells meant trouble. There were other wells in the city, of course, but they were equally as vulnerable. The people might have to start relying on the river for their water, and it was far less healthy, muddy and polluted by waste from both the army camps and the city itself.
Ew.
Yeah. Very gross. And ashy. Set guards around these wells, Elend said, waving a hand. Board them up, post warnings, and then tell the healers to watch with particular care for other outbreaks. We keep getting wound tighter and tighter, he thought, as Ham nodded. At this rate, we'll snap long before winter ends. So, yes, tension is rising, but again, it's good that Elend is the one to be seen doing this, and Elend has control of the armies, as far as I can tell, or at least various soldiers.
Yeah. He's functioning as the king anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good argument to say, well, would you like things to change? You don't know what you're going to get with the other guys. Well, actually, you do, kind of tyranny. So enjoy that. Yeah.
The tyranny of peace.
And he's approachable. He's the people trust him. It means he's approachable.
Yeah.
Mm.
After a detour for a late dinner, where some talk about servants getting sick left her concerned, Vin went in and checked on Elend, who had returned from walking the city with Ham. After that, Vin and Orasur continued their original quest, that of finding Dachshund. They located him in the palace library. The room had once been Straff's personal study. Elend seemed to find the room's new purpose amusing for some reason. Yeah, some dirty old skas in Straff's room.
Yeah, love it.
Personally, Vin didn't find the library's location nearly as amusing as its contents, or rather, the lack thereof. Though the room was lined with shelves, nearly all of them showed signs of having been pillaged by Elend. The rows of books lay pocked by forlorn empty spots, their companions taken away one by one, as if Elend were a predator slowly whittling down a herd. Vin smiled. It probably wouldn't be too long before Elend had stolen every book in the small library, carrying the tomes up to his study, then forgetfully placing them in one of his piles, ostensibly planning to return them later. Still, there were a large number of volumes left, ledgers, books of figures, and notebooks on finances, things that Elend usually found of little interest.
But we're still calling it a library. Okay.
Yep. And these are all things that she likes about Elend.
Yeah, she thinks about him and smiles. Yay!
It's cute.
Mhm.
Dachshund sat at the library's desk now, writing in a ledger. He noticed her arrival and glanced over with a smile, but then turned back to his notations, apparently not wanting to lose his place. Vin waited for him to finish, Orisor at her side. Of all the members of the crew, Dachshund seems to have changed the most during the last year. She remembered her first impressions of him back in Cammon's lair. Dachshund had been Kelsier's right-hand man, and the more realistic of the pair. Yet there had always been an edge of humor to Dachshund, a sense that he enjoyed his role as the straight man. He hadn't foiled Kelsier so much as complimented him. Kelsier was dead. Where did that leave Dachshund? He wore a nobleman's suit, as he always had, and of all the crew members the suits seemed to fit him the best. If he shaved off the half-beard, he could pass for a nobleman, not a rich high courtier, but a lord in his early middle age who had lived his entire life trading goods beneath a great house master. So,
Yeah.
I read half a beard and I imagined it the funny way.
What, half one side?
Yeah, the left side.
Okay. You know, it's just because the right side would be less funny, hey? But yeah, just this just makes me realize, yeah, we have really not had a lot of Dachshund in this book at all.
Yeah, really very little.
That has demonstrated the change because he hasn't made his quips and things like that as much.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have had the change demonstrated to us, but yeah, I miss him and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad.
He's a workaholic.
Mhm.
He wrote in his ledgers, but he had always done that. He still played the role of the responsible one in the crew. So what was different? He was the same person, did the same things. He just felt different. The laughter was gone, the quiet enjoyment of the eccentricity in those around him. Without Kelsier, Dachshund had changed from temperate to boring. And that was what made her suspicious.
This has to be done.
She thought, smiling at Dachshund as he set down his pen and waved her to take a seat. Vin sat down, Orisor padding over to stand beside her chair. Dachshund eyed the dog, shaking his head slightly. That's such a remarkably well-trained beast, Vin. I don't think I've ever seen one quite like it.
Does he know?
Vin wondered with alarm.
Would one conjurer be able to recognize another in a dog's body?
No, that couldn't be. Otherwise Orisor could find the imposter for her. Good, I'm glad you had that thought, Vin.
Mm-hmm. But if it's against the contract, maybe
Yeah.
that point doesn't count.
True. She simply smiled again, patting Orisor's head.
There's a trainer in the market. He teaches wolfhounds to be protective, to stay with young children and keep them out of danger.
Dachshund nodded. So any purpose to this visit? Vin shrugged.
We never chat anymore, Docs.
Dachshund sat back in his chair. This might not be the best time for chatting. I have to prepare the royal finances to be taken over by someone else, should the vote go against Elend.
Would a conjurer be able to do the ledgers?
Vin wondered.
Yes, they'd have known. They'd have been prepared. Would a conjurer be able to do the ledgers? Yes, okay, they would have been prepared, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of work to put in, you know? A lot of work to put your spy to.
Sure.
But then again, they then have the financial knowledge, which is quite
Useful.
useful, yeah. So, I don't know, I'm just playing devil's avocado. So, it's
Devil's avocado.
it's a new term I learned.
Excellent.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to bother you, but Ellen has been so busy lately, and Sazed has his project.
It's all right. I can spare a few minutes. What's on your mind?
Well, do you remember that conversation we had back before the collapse?
Dachshund frowned. Which one?
You know, the one about your childhood.
Oh. Yes, what about it?
Well, do you still think the same way?
Dachshund paused thoughtfully, fingers slowly tapping on the desktop. Vin waited, trying not to show her tension. The conversation in question had been between the two of them, and during it, Doxson had first spoken to her of how much he'd hated the nobility. I suppose I don't. Not anymore. Kel always said that you gave the nobility too much credit, Vin, but you started to change even him there at the end. No, I don't think that noble society needs to be completely destroyed. They aren't all monsters as I once presumed. Vin relaxed. He not only knew the conversation, he knew the details of the tangents they'd discussed. She had been the only one there with him. That had to mean he wasn't the Kandra, right?
Mm,
So, you're nervous? I was nervous too.
mm-hmm.
He didn't get into too much specifics.
Yeah, he could, and the obviously the pause is fine either way, but he can glean. Okay, what would Vin be talking about here?
Mm-hmm.
It is a risk that he would be taking to answer, but that's it. He's paused and gone. Okay, we spoke about childhood. You could think of this and be like, okay, do you still think differently? Yeah, I think you can glean enough from context and take the risk and come out on top.
Yeah.
I need something more.
Yeah.
And there is still the fact that we haven't had any confirmation whether memories of anything. I suppose it would have come up,
Yeah, I
but
don't think
yeah.
memories do because well, actually,
Mm,
no, I retract that because there was a line that made me think they don't, but then I think there was a line that made me think they do. I don't
mhm.
specifically remember off the top of my head. Should have taken notes this week. Darn.
There is the thing is it's not confirmed that they don't. So
Yeah.
there, that's the problem. But I suppose by now it would have come up as a yes or no. So we should just consider it
Mm-hmm.
confirmed that they don't get memories, but still technically could be it's a factor, okay?
Yep. This is about Elend, isn't it? Vin shrugged.
I suppose.
I know that you wish he and I could get along better, Vin, but all things considered, I think we're doing pretty well. He is a decent man. I can acknowledge that. He has some faults as a leader. He lacks boldness, lacks presence.
Not like Kelsia.
But I don't want to see him lose his throne. He has treated the Ska fairly for a nobleman,
He's a good person, Docs.
Vin said quietly. Doxson looked away. I know that, but, well, every time I talk to him, I see Kelsier standing over his shoulder, shaking his head at me. Do you know how long Kel and I dreamed of toppling the Lord Ruler? The other crew members, they thought Kelsier's plan was a newfound passion, something that came to him in the pits. But it was older than that, Vin. Far older. We always hated the nobility, Kel and I. When we were youths planning our first job, we wanted to be rich, but we also wanted to hurt them. Hurt them for taking from us things that they had no right to. My love, Kelsier's mother. Every coin we stole. Every nobleman we left dead in an alleyway. This was our way of waging war. Our way of punishing them. Okay, so that's all stuff a Kandra could learn.
Yeah, it's a core characteristic thing. It's not specific.
Yeah.
Mm.
Vin sat quietly. It was these kinds of stories, these memories of a haunted past, that had always made her a little uncomfortable with Kelsier, and with the person he had been training her to become. It was this sentiment that gave her pause, even when her instincts whispered that she should go and exact retribution on Straff and Set, with knives in the night.
I get this. Yeah, I get this because look, Vin, you think, oh well, Vin's a freaking predator, man. She'll kill you easy. But and yes, she does have vengeful arcs, I suppose, but it is directly who has done something to her, she will go and take vengeance upon them. It's not, I'm gonna take vengeance upon an entire class of people. That is a
Mm-hmm.
completely different, a deeper wrong than just retaliation.
Yeah.
It's prejudice, and she is not comfortable with that at all.
Yeah.
Um, so I get it. I get why she's just like, yeah, this is this underlying uncomfortable thing. It makes sense to me because Vin knows that as her life on the streets, it's like, okay, well, if someone steals from me, I've got to steal back, and all of that. Completely, I'm with her on that. But at the same time, she's not going to just take it out on a whole group of people. which, yeah, commendable, I'd say.
Yeah. Doxson held some of that same hardness. Cal and Dox weren't evil men, but there was an edge of vengefulness to them. Oppression had changed them in ways that no amount of peace, reformation, or recompense could redeem. Doxson shook his head. And we put one of them on the throne. I can't help but think that Kel would be angry with me for letting Elend rule, no matter how good a man he is.
What do you think of that?
Well, as we're about to learn, he supposedly didn't know that Kelsier ended up saving Elend in the end.
Mm.
I do think Kel would be upset that
Yeah.
Elend's on the throne. I think he would react not wholly dissimilarly to how Doxson has reacted. I
Mhm.
think he would accept it. I think he would see that there's goodness in Elend and go along with it. Although, to be honest, if Kelsey, it's a moot point, because if
Mm.
Kelsier were here, I think he'd be the one in charge, not Elend.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree. He would have, if by some reason we had to have Elend as king and Calcia was still around, I think Calcia, yeah, would accept it.
Yeah. I think if they held a seance, he'd be like, "You did what? Doxson, why aren't you king?"
And then Vern will be like, "Listen, Elend, you know he's a good man." And then you'll be like, "Okay, yeah, I guess."
Yeah, it might take him a little bit to calm down, I think, but he could come around.
Mm.
Maybe. I don't know. I think we might have a legitimate disagreement here, Kite.
I don't know. Either way, moot point, as you said.
Yeah.
Calcia changed at the end. You said it yourself, Dox. Did you know that he saved Ellen's life?
Doxson turned, frowning. When?
On that last day, during the fight with the Inquisitor, Cal protected Elend, who came looking for me.
Must have thought he was one of the prisoners. Vin shook her head.
He knew who Elend was, and knew that I loved him. In the end, Calcia was willing to admit that a good man was worth protecting, no matter who his parents were.
I find that hard to accept, Vin.
Why?
Doxson met her eyes. Because if I accept that Elend bears no guilt for what his people did to mine, then I must admit to being a monster for the things that I did to them.
Phew. That was good. And it's so powerful. That's such a big, big realization. It's like, yeah, it's true.
That is such a sad belief statement.
Mm-hmm. It's like, no, if that's it, then you can see that he is pained. You can see how this has caused pain in him, or some sort of turmoil, some change.
Mm-hmm. Vin shivered. In those eyes, she saw the truth behind Doxson's transformation. She saw the death of his laughter. She saw the guilt, the murders.
This man is no imposter.
I can find little joy in this government, Vin, because I know what we did to create it. The thing is, I'd do it all again. I tell myself it's because I believe in Scot freedom. If I ever lie awake at nights, I'm only quietly satisfied for what we've done to our former rulers. Their society undermined. Their god dead. Now they know. Vin nodded. Doxson looked down as if ashamed, an emotion she'd rarely seen in him. There didn't seem to be anything else. Doxson sat quietly as she withdrew, his pen and ledger forgotten on the desktop. Oh, poor Doxson.
Yeah, I almost want it to be that he is an imposter. That we have a Dachshund. Dachshund isn't this tortured anymore. He's yeah.
Dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
Oh no. Do you think a Condra can fake that then?
Yeah, they're very good actors. They can
I
go all the way
suppose.
in. They can think about, they become the person. So I don't think it's beyond them to come up with something like that, and also put so much emotion into it so that it manipulates Vin.
Hmm.
That is a mechanism that probably Condro use as well. It's just make someone uncomfortable, show uncomfortable emotions and things like that. That makes them go, "Oh, okay, this cannot be an imposter. This is something a Condro would make use of." That's what I'm thinking, because I don't trust it, and also because I just don't want Doxson to be feeling this much turmoil and guilt. But then again, at the same time, you do want him to have a conscience.
Yeah.
Mm. Interesting difference between our editions is yours says even if I lie awake at nights, or even when, something like that. Mine says
If I ever.
if I ever. So mine says I still lie awake at nights.
Interesting. I
Mm,
like that one better, to be honest.
mm,
Yours.
yeah, because there's no ifs. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's not him.
Vin said, walking down an empty palace hallway, trying to shake the haunting sound of Dockson's voice from her mind. You are certain, mistress? Vin nodded.
He knew about a private conversation that Doxon and I had before the collapse.
Orsor was silent for a moment. Mistress, my brethren can be very thorough.
Yes, but how could he have known about such an event?
We often interview people before we take their bones, mistress. We'll meet them several times, in different settings, and find ways to talk about their lives. We'll also talk to their friends and acquaintances. Did you ever tell anyone about this conversation you had with Dockson? Vin stopped to lean against the side of the stone hallway.
Maybe Elland. I think I mentioned it to Sazet too, just after it happened. That was almost 2 years ago.
That could have been enough, mistress. We cannot learn everything about a person, but we try our best to discover items like this. Private conversations, secrets, confidential information, so that we can mention them at appropriate times and reinforce our illusion. Vin frowned. There are other things as well, mistress. I hesitate because I do not wish you to imagine your friends in pain. However, it is common for our master, the one who does the killing, to torture their victim for information. Finn closed her eyes. Dockson felt so real. His guilt, his reactions, that couldn't be faked, could it?
Yes, it could!
It very much could.
Yeah. Look, it does seem a bit far-fetched that, I mean, you would have to find a specific, like, a conversation that would have to, like, I don't see Doxon mentioning that conversation to someone, or Sazed or Elend actually mentioning having heard about this conversation to anyone. That's quite a far-fetched.
Hmm.
But as we said earlier, the assumption that he remembered this conversation is already wrong. He it's vague enough. I don't think it's specific enough that
Yeah.
to warrant this. And I guess we can, if we're saying, if we're going with the theory it is Dogasur who is the Khandra, then he wants to convince Vin that it's someone else. So
Yeah.
he could be pointing out these flaws in manipulative fashion.
This is true.
Mm. God damn this mystery. We need an end to it.
Agreed.
Damn.
She whispered quietly, opening her eyes. She turned, sighing as she pushed open the shutters of a hallway window. It was dark out, and the mists curled before her as she leaned against the stone windowsill and looked at the courtyard 2 stories below.
Dox isn't an Allomancer. How can I find out for certain if he's the imposter or not?
I do not know, mistress. This is never an easy task.
Guys! Just emotionally elements. Hello? Am I wrong, Dorkus? You just
No,
did
that's
it.
exactly it.
Yeah,
And she can see it.
yes, you did it to Straff. You did it exactly that way, and you could see his reaction. Just do it that way. Duralumine his ass, and see if he cries or not, or something. Hello? Whoa, and she's sitting there. How can I figure it out? I was expecting when then this conversation was happening with Doxon, I thought she was going to try and emotionally animate, like do that. But no. Come on, Vin. Damn this mystery. We are done. Come. We are more than halfway. Tell us. Good lord.
Vin stood quietly. Absently, she pulled out her bronze earring, her mother's, and worked it between her fingers, watching it reflect light. It had once been gilded with silver, but that had worn off in most places.
I hate this.
She finally whispered. Wait, silver. That might be important, because as far as we know, that's not an allomantic metal. Do you think she can hear the thumping because of little bits of silver? No.
No.
No, that's a stretch.
Mm-hmm. But it would be funny. She takes it out and the thumping stops and it's like, what the hell? But then again, if it is just small little particles that are getting that to happen, taking it out wouldn't stop.
Yeah, and I'm sure other people have more silver around them at any given time, so ridiculous.
But it's still It's there. It's a note we have to remember.
Yeah, because that is new information.
Mhm. Maybe that had to do with we did have reference to her drawing on the mists.
Hmm.
She had did she have yeah, she had the earring in, remember? We were so set on this earring being a big deal.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Yeah.
Okay. I'm convinced there's something there,
Mm. I hate this.
she finally whispered. What, mistress?
This distrust. I hate being suspicious of my friends. I thought I was through mistrusting those around me. I feel like a knife is twisting inside me, and it cuts deeper every time I confront one of the crew.
Orasor sat on his haunches beside her and he cocked his head. But, mistress, you've managed to eliminate several of them as imposters.
Yes, but that only narrows the field, brings me one step closer to knowing which one of them is dead.
And that knowledge isn't a good thing? Vin shook her head.
I don't want it to be any of them, Orasur. I don't want to distrust them. Don't want to find out that we're right.
Orasor didn't respond at first, leaving her to stare out the window mists slowly streaming to the floor around her. You are sincere, Orasor finally said. She turned.
Of course I am.
I'm sorry, mistress. I did not wish to be insulting. Well, I have been Khandra to many masters. So many of them are suspicious and hateful of everyone around them. I had begun to think that your kind lacked the capacity for trust,
That's silly.
Vin said, turning back to the window. I know it is, but people often believe silly things, given enough proof. In any case, I apologize. I do not know which of your friends is dead, but I am sorry that one of my kind has brought you this pain.
Whoever he is, he's just following his contract.
Yes, mistress. The contract. Man, if it's Dagasaur, this is...
Yeah, it's his way of apologizing, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I find this like this. He is apologizing for in context what he said that made her realize she's hurting and things like that. But I feel if it is him, it's him kind of saying sorry for causing her pain.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's how it works, and just feeling bad for not being able to tell her.
Agreed.
Mm.
Yes, mistress. The contract. Vin frowned.
Is there a way that you could find out which Chandra has a contract in Luthadel?
I'm sorry, mistress. That is not possible.
I figured as much. Are you likely to know him, whoever he is?
The Khandra are a close-knit group, mistress, and our numbers are small. There is a good chance that I know him quite well. Vin tapped her finger against the windowsill, frowning as she tried to decide if the information was useful.
He knows him so well, he could be it.
Yes? Okay, look, hear me out. What if Vin asked for, like, a list of Khandra names, okay? And she just started randomly dropping those Khandra names into conversations with everyone and
Hmm.
just looking for, like, turned heads or eyes of acknowledgement.
I mean, it's a way to do it, but if you're gonna do that, you might as well emotionally element everyone.
Yeah, that would be the safer way to do it.
Yeah, the quicker way, and I still don't think that they would be able to get, like, a list of all the Khandra. I think that is, definitely not something the Khandra would do.
Oh man, she doesn't even need. She could just go around saying, "Hey, Khandra," as if she were their master to see if they have
Yeah,
like an immediate reaction to it.
but then again,
Then
they're
it gives
supposedly
away.
so good.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're trying to keep it a secret that someone's a
Mm,
Khandra.
yeah. Well, we'll see what happens right now.
Vin tapped her finger against the windowsill, frowning as she tried to decide if the information was useful.
I still don't think it's Doxin.
She finally said, replacing the earring.
Okay, why did she take it out and put it back in? What is happening?
I'm sure it's just to add action to the scene.
Hmm. We'll ignore him for now. If I can't get any other leads, we'll come back.
She trailed off as something caught her attention, a figure walking in the courtyard bearing no light.
Ham.
She thought, but the walk wasn't right. She pushed on the shield of the lamp hanging on the wall a short distance away. It snapped closed, the lamp shaking as the hallway fell into darkness. Mistress? Orasur asked as Vin climbed up into the window, flaring her tin as she squinted into the night.
Definitely not Ham.
Her first thought was of Elend, a sudden terror that assassins had come while she was talking to Doxson. But it was early in the night, and Elend would still be speaking with his counselors. It was an unlikely time for an assassination. And only one man? Not Zane, judging from the height.
Probably just a god. Why do I have to be so paranoid all the time?
And yet, she watched the figure walking into the courtyard and her instincts kicked in. He seemed to be moving suspiciously, as if he were uncomfortable, as if he didn't want to be seen.
In my arms.
She said to Orisor, tossing a padded coin. So, here's the thing. We know it's Demio. Why would Condra Demio, who is essentially, second in command of the city guards, need to be sneaky? I think he's got himself a girlfriend or something. I don't think he's out meeting with Zane or anything.
I don't know. It could be. It could be either.
Yeah.
Well, no. Why would it be more likely that it's a girlfriend than Zane?
Because, I mean, you're right. It's not a great. Either way, I don't see why he needs to be sneaky. It's more like the crux of my argument is he's second in command of the guards, who talks regularly with Elend. He should be able to walk around with confidence.
He shouldn't be sneaking at all, unless it's something. But then again, and so I say, unless it's something he doesn't want people to know about. Duh.
I suppose like meeting with Zane.
You don't want people to know that you were out at a certain time.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know.
I still think, it's Vin's. The thing is, it's still worth investigating. Come on. We would be like, Vin, go and look at this. Go figure this out if she wasn't going there. She is a bit gung ho, but I do think it's worth investigating. And
Agreed.
Yes, I do think she's eager for it to be Demure because she doesn't want it to be Doxy.
Yeah, I really hope that she doesn't kill him, realize he's not the Condra, and then be like, what have I done? And then become really depressed or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of my fear for what will happen.
Yeah, and also we just don't want, you need information. Don't just kill him.
Yeah. He hopped up obligingly and she leapt out the window, fell 25 feet and landed with the coin. She released Orisor and nodded into the mists. He followed closely as she moved into the darkness, stooping and hiding, trying to get a good look at the lone figure. The man walked briskly toward the side of the palace where the servants' entrances were. As he passed, she finally saw his face.
Captain Demure?
She sat back, crouching with Orisor beside a small stack of wooden supply boxes. What did she really know of Demure? He was one of the Ska rebels recruited by Kelsier almost 2 years before. He'd taken to command and had been promoted quickly. He was one of the loyal men who had stayed behind when the rest of the army had followed Yedden to their doom. After the collapse, he'd kept with the crew, eventually becoming Ham's second. He had received no small amount of training from Ham, which might explain why he'd go out at night without a torch or lantern. But even so...
If I were going to replace someone on the crew, I wouldn't pick an Alamancer. That would make the imposter too easy to spot. I'd pick someone ordinary, someone who wouldn't have to make decisions or attract notice. Someone close to the crew, but not necessarily on it. Someone who is always near the important meetings, but someone that others don't really know that well.
It's strong logic.
It is. We did think about this ourselves, so I'm not going to be like, it's not strong logic. I think it's amazing.
Yes, it's definitely worth investigating. She felt a small thrill. If the imposter were Demure, it would mean that one of her good friends hadn't been killed. And it would mean that the Condra's master was even smarter than she'd given him credit for. He rounded the keep and she followed quietly. Whatever he'd been doing this night, it was already completed, for he moved in through one of the entrances on the side of the building, greeting the guards posted there to watch. Vin sat back in the shadows. He'd spoken to the guards, so he hadn't snuck out of the palace, and yet she recognized the stooped posture, the anxious movements. He'd been nervous about something.
That's him, the spy.
But now what should she do about it?
End chapter.
Yeah, I'm not there with you yet, Vin.
Yeah, I think Vin is just really trying to... She's coping.
A little bit.
Like, she's way too certain. This should be investigated. That's it.
Agreed.
And after her not allomancing on Doxin, I'm like, "You are not using everything in your power here."
Very much agree.
Mhm. Duralumin! Come on, boys.
Do it.
Also, I just wanted to note, hey, she dropped a padded coin. I don't think I've noticed that before. It's a coin so that it doesn't make a noise when it hits the ground.
That's very smart.
Mhm. 'Cause I was like, "What do you mean padded coin?" It's like, "Oh, so it's like in a little sack or something." Yeah.
Or a little bit of cloth.
Mm. So it doesn't go "Ka-ting" when and lets
Yeah.
people know. So, yeah, don't announce your moves. It's good.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I did enjoy this chapter
Mhm.
tremendously.
Yeah. I enjoyed I going through it the second time now with you makes me just more, "It's Arasua!"
Yeah.
It's too much like this, but yeah, we do need confirmation.
Agreed.
We've been toyed with too much. I'm done! I think I was done many times before, but still.
Also agreed. Well, I think that's all I've got for today, yeah?
Mhm.
Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. And subscribe to that Dunkita if you get a chance. She's got a great channel. And we'll see you next time. Okay,
Okay, thanks,
thanks, bye.
bye!